So today I will show you how you can create this Gojo jacket in Blender with all kind of simulation and everything. So if you are a beginner, you can follow the steps that I'm gonna show you in this tutorial and you can easily create this jacket. So the first thing that you have to do, you have to create a plane and you have to subdivide that plane, and you have to just remove the corners of that plane like this, and you will get this type of shape. And make sure that you do not create too much subdivisions. We need this high boxiness in the cloth, so do not try to subdivide it too much because it can create problems later. After that, what you have to do, you have to just extrude the edges of these things and make sure that you use a mirror modifier, because if you are not using a mirror modifier, then what will happen, you have to do the changes on the both side, so it's better to use a mirror modifier. So the next thing that you have to do, you have to just go to the side face and you have to select all the faces, and you have to make sure that you unselect these faces. So the reason behind this is because we don't want the stitches to be happen on those area, so that's why we are deselecting those things, those faces. And then you have to make sure that you are using only faces, because we need that edges, and if the edges are not there, then what will happen, your cloth will not stitch properly. So we need the edges to stitch our cloth. So you have to just think about the real life cloths, how real life cloth makes. It was the same process. So we need the areas where we need the stitches to be like this, and the area we don't want these stitches to be happen, we need it to be like open, like in the hand area and in the neck area. So you have to make sure that you are not missing any kind of vertices. There is one gap you can see there, and I'm just joining the vertices of this thing, because if you're not joining this thing, then what will happen when you start the cloth simulation, it will not join properly. So you have to just add this edges into the vertices like that. Okay, so after this we will do the cloth simulation, and in the cloth simulation I'm not gonna show all the settings what I'm using. I already made a tutorial on the cloth simulation settings. You can watch that tutorial. I will put all the necessary and the important tutorials I made on cloth simulation in the playlist. You can check the playlist, and for this I will just fast forward and you can see the process. And you have to make sure that your normals are proper. You can see my normals of this thing are red, so you have to make sure that the front face of your cloth is blue and the inner side of your cloth has to be red. So you can change the normal, just go to the edit mode and then select all the vertices of your cloth, and then you have to press shift and it will flip the normals of your cloth, and then when you do the simulation, it will work properly. So in the process of the cloth simulation, you have to just make sure that you're getting a rough sketch, or you can say the rough layout of your cloth. You don't have to be perfect in your first simulation. We have to apply the simulation, and we just need a base model of the cloth. And after, when we get the base model of the cloth, we will use another cloth modifier, or you can say the cloth simulation modifier, to get a proper cloth simulation with that base model. So after this, what you have to do, you have to just pick a frame of your cloth simulation that looks good, and then you have to just apply your cloth simulation. Then you have to just go to your edge select mode, and you have to fill this area. So you have to just select all the edges of your cloth that you want to fill, and you have to press Ctrl E, bridge edge loops. So what it will do, it will fill those areas where there is gap between the cloth, and it will make the cloth as a complete mesh. So now I'm just giving some seams, and if you don't know how to give a seam, I already made a separate tutorial for that. You can watch that thing. I will put all the tutorials in the playlist. You have to just watch all the main and the most important tutorials for the cloth simulation, and you're good to go. So now you can see I'm just extruding the collars of the jacket, because you will notice that Gojo has this type of collar in his jacket. So I'm just extruding the edges of the collar, and I'm just moving them up, and it will create that collar effect, not effect, but that collar. So after doing everything, we get this base model of the jacket where we can do the simulation stuff. So after this, you can see I'm just trying to get the jacket properly in my character, and you have to make sure that there is no intersecting point in the jacket and the character, because if there is any kind of intersection, then the cloth simulation will not work. It will clip the simulation and it will just create the weird issues. So I'm just doing some kind of sculpting and just try to move the mesh up and down and try to fit the jacket with the character, and that's all. So after this, I'm just applying a cloth simulation modifier, and you have to follow this step. Okay, so the first modifier, you have to put a subdivision modifier, and then second one is the cloth, and then the third one is again a subdivision, and the last two is the solidify and the edge split. So basically you have to just follow the modifier stacking, because if you try to use your solidify on top and subdivision at the end, then the simulation will not work properly. And now we will do the cloth simulation, and before doing any cloth simulation, you have to make sure that you properly give a collision modifier to your object. So in my case, I am giving the collision modifier to my body, head and the pants. So you can copy the settings of the collision modifiers, and after this we will add the cloth simulation, because if you are not using collision modifier, then your cloth will not be colliding with the mesh and it will fall down. And now we have to do the cloth simulation, and there is not a single value that you can use to get a proper cloth simulation. You have to do hit and trials, and I already made the separate tutorial, and you can watch that thing in the playlist. And that's the must, you have to watch those things, because I can't cover everything in this one tutorial, then it will be so long. You can just go to the playlist, and there you will find all the most important thing that you need for a cloth simulation. So after that, you have to bake your simulation, and then you have to convert that simulation into the shape keys. And again, I already made the tutorial on that thing also. You can watch that thing in the playlist. So I will just tell you some advantages of having that shape key. So now what you can do, you can just fix the imperfections or the clipping of your cloth with the object very easily with the sculpt brush or anything, and you don't have to be re-simulating or redoing any kind of simulation again and again. You can just fix those things with the sculpt brush or edit tool or anything. So now I'm just separating a strip of the jacket, because there is a strip in the jacket also. So you have to just select the faces, and you have to press Shift D, and then you have to press P, and you have to separate those objects. And after that, you have to just give a solidify modifier, just giving some edge split modifier, subdivision, and at the end I just do some small sculpting, small changes in the cloth, and the cloth is done.